So I think I do want to jump back into Freaked. Before I do, I want to respond to this comment. I think I'm going to start just responding to comments like in video form primarily. That way, if let's say when the inevitable YouTube apocalypse happens and we lose all this information, we won't have completely lost it. We'll have some records of these conversations embedded in the video document itself. So, hi, Frank. I find this all very interesting. Thank you for sharing this stuff. I didn't know this about Swedish love. That's interesting and very funny. And very, funny in a sync sort of context as well, because it does sort of thematize the hands again. Yeah, this stuff with sixth senses and so on. Have you seen Freaked before? If not, that's amazing intuition, because Freaked does go on to develop like a subplot around telepathy explicitly, so we are going to see that. Yeah, the walk and all this stuff. Very interesting. Okay, well, the other thing I found pertaining to that is, according to this article, Swedish cinema historically has a more liberal stance towards sex than their North American counterparts. I had no idea this was a thing. This can be seen in cinema as far back as 1951. Apparently, Summer with Monica. Blended art house with grindhouse. Highbrow and low. It's all union of opposite stuff here. Isn't that funny? This reputation was embraced in Swedish cinema for decades. Interesting. Okay, so multiple ways in which that makes sense. I want to return to that area, actually. I don't think that we're going to make a tremendous amount of progress in the timeline of this film today, probably. Because I really want to just kind of go back through everything we've already seen, but not in a boring way. I hope. I think there's things that we didn't see that we can see now. So, but I won't keep you in suspense any longer about what Elijah is. So let's just meet Elijah, and then we'll dart back more or less to the beginning. Oh, just to provide context for what he's saying here, this is in response to Ernie asking, "Where are all the weirdos?" Right? And so here's Elijah, played amazingly by Randy Quaid, who's going to say or just said, there are no weirdos here, and now he's listing some things that are here. So, first of all, isn't Randy just amazing and hilarious in this role? I think it's so funny. Genetic nightmares! I also think that all these weird misspellings, like the human worm things, are basically just making fun of Randy's speaking style. Well, here's a very peculiar alignment, huh? we see the tip of this real red twins pair here. So these guys have red hair. And so they're kind of combined to a red twins pair. And then here we have a man in a woman's dress wearing red high heels. This is amazing to me because it sort of combines JP's red shoes, boots, whatever, with this redhead sort of alchemical hermaphrodite theme, which then we get again between these two characters eventually. That's, in fact, what Elijah does, is it's Elijah that fuses Ernie and Julie, whose, I was realizing, whose names are very similar as well, aren't they? Ernie, Julie. Jewel. Trying to see if there's like an anagram there or something. I don't know. There's a serpent here. We can't quite see. We're going to get better pictures of this, so I guess I won't dwell on it. But just to note, yeah, there are really interesting things happening in the ground that are incredibly alchemical, I think. Also, let's note that Elijah, as a kind of masculine prophet-like figure, we would definitely associate with Logos. And he's holding a microphone. He's very much on this side. And over here we just have... It's just going nuts with... fiery red twins explosion energy stuff.
Certainly. But as for weirdos...
You see what I mean? Like, what, his hair is strange, actually. I don't know what color it's supposed to be. It's kind of just like an acid wash, like, I don't know, like beach blonde sort of thing or something. He looks rather orange overall.
Not a one. Unless, of course...
You count me.
You count me.
And then the fire, so, you know, his hair and the fire are linked there. This pattern in the background.
You seem like a regular dumb shit old redneck to me.
The vengeance is going to be sweet, though.
I'm Julie, and you are...
I am Elijah C. Skuggs, proud proprietor of Skuggs' fabulous free
facial expressions are
Mutant
just
Emporium. But you already knew that. After all, you have ventured miles away from civilization, hospitals, telephones, police. How may I help you? Rob dead.
We would love to see your freak show.
Yeah, it's because what I find funny about her performance, it's because she spends a lot of time, like, squinting at Ricky, I think, just kind of, like, annoyedly. Is that a word? Okay, there's a funny joke here. I guess we'll work our way back up to this now. So, okay, there's just a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. This scene... Well, first of all, I think this actor, I can't remember his name right now, but I think he appears in Warlock the Armageddon as well. Maybe we can begin by just confirming that link. Let's see. I'm treating this now really just as a big research object here. I just am trying to document as much of this as I can. In the way of just seeing how far this thing really goes. Let's see. I guess we want to head over to IMDb. Freaked. Excellent. And I just want to look at... Aha. Look, they're named here. George Ramirez 1, George Ramirez 2, etc. Michu. So, oh, Michu was in Waxwork as well. I remember that. Yeah. Oh gosh, was he in Alf's suit for a while, maybe? Interesting. Well, let's see here. Yeah, so there it is. Freaked and Warlock. You know, last time that was so fruitful. Let's open Warlock again. I guess maybe this is a confirmation that we really ought to be reading these two films, especially in parallel. That connection with the tree was pretty interesting. Reading Freaked along with Gremlins is also clearly necessary because of the way this film interlocks with the Trump, Clamp parody material. And also because Gremlins is mentioned by name in this film, which we'll see eventually. Okay, let's dive back into Warlock. Right where we left it. Where does this occur? Yeah, I do believe it's right here. Yes, and I do believe it is connected to this really strange scene, so okay. You know, I'm not sure what is being talked about here in this dialogue section. Maybe it's important context, so let's just grab it and see what's going on. I want to make sure that we're not going to get caught here, so I'm going to run this pretty slow. I actually think that YouTube's algorithms can probably catch this, even when we run it slow, because it doesn't care about the speed. Like, it's just doing frame analysis, probably. But I think maybe they deliberately tune it so that if you're showing stuff really slowed down, or things that are just obviously very edited or divergent in some way, maybe to try to make it a little fair, I'm not sure. But anyway, Freaked just seems like nobody cares about it. I think we could probably just run Freaked at full speed and not have any problems, at least for now. But this property, I think we might have more trouble with, so I'm going to keep it slow. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't pumping the image too much.
Don't worry about it. Look, I'm
I was very interested in these checkerboard patterns. Okay, well, there isn't really very much going on in this scene. Strange little scene.
Got 3 days left. I know that.
3 days left. They're uncertain about Hero. Who I think just, you know, aborted a spell or something. Okay. What is this? I wonder. These look like, aha, it's a woman seated. Red stockings, black high heels, dress, yellow dress, white dress, like a fan. Like a red couch, maybe. This is, you know, an Iron Maiden. It's also a great band. And that is going to come into play here. I don't remember exactly why or how we're even in this circus. It's a complicated film, and it's been a while since I've watched it. Sorry, I'm just repositioning my laptop here. But I actually don't think that this is very connected up with anything in the film. I think this is just kind of part of Julian's character trying to locate the stones that he needs to open this portal to hell, or whatever the situation is. So it leads him through a variety of different scenes, and it, you know, there's a stone here, I guess, that he's trying to recover. Interesting staff. Oh, come on.
Sometimes I think you actually are psychic.
Aha, so Michu plays a psychic. It's a sad clown face, big red nose. Aha, here's the other redhead. So we have 2 red-headed clowns. It's incredible how these symbols just continue to organize this way, isn't it? This one too, how to describe this? it relates so much to like the look of that little poodle that we see in Hellraiser 3. It really has specifically that sense, which is so, I mean, I find to be just very resonant with the Atomic Kid. I won't bother to look at. We all have the image in our head at this point, right? Sorry, just noting as we go, you know, bow tie again. This is a film that tells us to look for this shape, you know, because it's the, yeah. Smoking mouth. I find these a little antenna resonant. I find just, you know, we said that one aspect of the projection space around the Atomic Kid was the animal being slaughtered. So I find this to be quite matchy.
I shove a big steak.
So this is a very exploitative relationship, obviously. He keeps the bulk of the take, and Michu's character just gets a quarter. I forget the name of this character. So, Michu's in a dress. Is this character meant to be female? So that's interesting. Michu is playing a woman here. Hickox always has such interesting things in his frames, you know? A magician here with a rabbit. The way that's positioned. I don't know how to interpret any of this, but it's all very interesting.
How can he lead you to salvation? There is no hope.
This is supposed to be a wax figure, I think. But we can clearly see this actor moving, right?
Chaos. Only
Great diopter shot. The interesting thing about Hickox, though, is it's these diopters, like it really divides the image into two halves for you, you know? So here's our red twins. Ferris wheel there. Look how this works. That's fire from the cigarette or the cigar. What are the colors we have here? Mostly yellow some bits of green, red. So that's all Atomic Kid colors. That's kind of, you know, down there relative to the B. And there's also a top hat here, which is basically a North Tower shape. So, and the diopter, you know, if we take the diopter lens to be the natural division point of the frame, it draws the line for you right there. So that's that's what you're matching. It just gives it to you so perfectly. And then this is here as if to say, we just pulled a rabbit out of that hat, you know. A cosmic magic trick was performed here. How weird is this that we started in this film called Freaked that then takes us to a circus that has all this weird red twin stuff in it. And then we jumped to Warlock on an intuition, right? Because of the look of this tree in this crazy sequence of matches we had. I'm struggling to find it here, but there it is. That led us into Warlock, which then it turns out just somehow also has all those other high-dimensional red twins things we looked at later in the film. And then here's Michu again, but now in this amazing scene. You know, it just starts to feel like I just feel like I'm always in the same movie now, you know? We never really leave. Well, I mean, that's exactly the thing. Is there's this other movie in these particular movies, and that other movie, that's exactly it. It's constant. It's.
I see.
Okay, I'm going to take it to 0.5. It's just a tad too slow.
Now, you do mean that that rare piece of Egyptian antiquity. Now, that is a very valuable and expensive item. It has great emotional and material value.
Two doors with exit signs and red, double red curtains.
Oh, I'd say at least $100. Wow, 75.
It's worth 1,000 times that, you craziness fool.
Yeah, oops. I can't remember if they all have different symbols on them, maybe? Legs. Red dress. And here's a little aluminum piece. So that in and of itself is a little match, but certainly in relation to the mouth that's smoking. And then, well, this is the Iron Maiden, which is, it's a bunch of spikes, so it's like antennas. And it's, you know, tower-like in its basic structure, and then more sort of prominent legs, though they're clothed, and red stripes. I love that. Do not sell to him the stone.
He is evil, the deliverer of Armageddon.
You really are a psychic. Very good. Very bad.
So here we have one of Julian's many spectacular kills in this film. This is probably one of the less gruesome kills, I'd say. Now it's interesting, it's like the dolls come alive, you know? Okay, so now he's running. So we're in the context now of art coming alive following a kind of maybe human sacrifice involving a psychic. And then we have two redheads. And these two impossible red rectangle doors. Whatever this is. And whoops, whatever these things are. Looks like maybe there's a bird there. Mirror. He goes into the mirror.
Welcome to the other side of reality.
Where the hell am I?
Check your pocket. I said check your pocket. If you're so clever, freak master, tell me, which one is the real stone and which the illusion? Guess correctly and I'll let you live. If you're wrong, then this is your eternity.
They're mirror reflections of each other? Is that right? Yeah.
You'll have to do better than that. You think I don't know the real from the fake?
Definitely seems like there's a running theme here of fantasy and illusion becoming merged with reality to the point where they're not distinguishable anymore, right? Now he thinks he's exited the mirror world, but
That depends on which side of the mirror you're standing.
precisely, Julian. This is I said this, I think, in the Kong analysis. This is another image that I feel is almost like, you know, if I didn't know that it was in this movie and all of this, if you were to just show me this out of context and say, what is this? I would consider, like, you know, an art piece about 9/11 to be a not unreasonable guess for this thing. Because of, well, mainly because of all of this texture that starts appearing here. We have all these rectangles suspended in space. So much of it looks so much like elements of the Trade Center. There's 3 figures there, maybe? This thing comes in. You know, I mean, just look at what Hickok's done here. He's just really framing those double red doors now. That's like, it's weird how that happens. Well, and then I mean, first of all, this is just really cool stuff. I'm just so into what's happening here as a movie, like, because we've been put in the position of that guy, sort of. It's like weird, we're like, on what side of the mirror are we now as we watch this last part of this scene unfold? So it throws this frame out to here, you know. It's like, oh, the whole movie is a weird mirror and I'm not sure what side of it I'm on. I love that. Well, then we just end with a big red twins thing. Okay. So that's enough Warlock for now. I want to keep this relatively jumpy again. Whoops. Come on. Bid you adieu, Warlock, until next time. Okay. And then I had prepared a list of topics I wanted to hit. Let me take a break before we jump into that. You know, it is really weird that these two movies both released in 1993. I wonder if they maybe had slightly overlapping productions even, or we should look that up, I guess. Yeah. Well, so there are actually a few different things I want to talk about. One thing is I want to have this big conversation about the Wizard of Oz and freak shows and circuses and Hollywood. That's like just such a huge bunch of material. I'm not sure if I'm really want to tackle it tonight. It's already a little late. But for sure what I want to do is I want to document these other things I was thinking about for Freaked before we move further in Freaked. So let's do that. Right. So I find it quite interesting that, like I say there, Ricky Coogan knows that Zygrot is not good. But he goes into business anyway. He betrays his conscience, essentially, to strike this deal. And then as soon as he's done that, we instantly meet Ernie, who's like a very sexualized character right away, right? Because this weird rubber hand crotch joke. And then, immediately after meeting Ernie, we meet Stewie, who is Rick's inner child. And Rick's inner child is very concerned about this deal with EES, understandably, right? We can kind of read it as being like the conscience as well. And so the inner child shows up to say, hey, what are you doing? And Ricky immediately represses that. Kicks Stewie out of the airlock. And then no sooner has that happened that suddenly we meet this anima figure who is, essentially the direct manifestation of the traits that Ricky had to repress in order to enter the deal with EES, right? This is like a political activist that views EES as just a purely corrupt organization that needs to be taken down. So she really is compensatory in this case. She kind of pops up to hold these aspects that have now been fractured out of Ricky because he's ignoring his inner child. And it's all very, it all works so well, doesn't it? Because then he's trapped in this prison of inauthenticity. So he's just performing. It's so interesting how this all works. Then also in the context of maybe these more unconscious aspects of this story to do with Alex Winter and his abuse in the entertainment industry. See, so this thing about freaks and exploitation and freak shows and all of this, and the whole sort of P.T. Barnum side of this and all of this. It's all networked in an interesting way. It's bizarre, though I'm not sure exactly how Ernie figures into all this. We're going to have to think about that as we go, I think. Perhaps, so what I say here about Ernie is that the anima fuses with Ernie. Right? Because we get I'm just going to jump around a little non-linearly now. They become this. I mean, it is such an alchemical image that, quite precisely, I think. Yeah, I do feel, I think, that this is a film that probably is going to work pretty well from this kind of everything is a psychological reflection of the main character type of analysis. It does seem to be working that way. It's confusing, though, there with the alchemical overlay. Well, I don't want to get totally bogged down in this. I just wanted to note that there, that the psychology is working in an interesting way there. Okay, so what did I have next on this list? Right, so an implication of homosexuality maybe between Ernie and Ricky? Possibly. But if Ernie is an aspect of Ricky, then that doesn't really make sense. All of this is within Ricky's psychological family, as it were. Yeah, hard to say. So I wanted to look one more time at this whole sequence here, because I really do think it's impressive. As usual, I had to kind of watch it a number of times to really get the full sense of it.
A human worm.
So one thing I wanted to say about this is that the whole worm character, last time we rotated this 90 degrees, we thought about this as being the South Tower, and then here we had the North Tower, and this would be kind of where the explosion is. That works really well. But I also just think that this entire figure kind of tracks the general sense of the Atomic Kid. It's that basic shape and look. It's like some weird little mutant animal thing, It's kind of half animal, half person, maybe. And with this particular kind of little grub-like body shape, Also, I believe this is in reference to a character we meet later who is a human worm that looks nothing like this. So this is just kind of a weird image. I want to do gematria calculations here. We'll do that in a second. Let's just stick with the picture for now.
I mean, that's just absurd. The point is that this product is a... Yeah, or a dog.
Yeah. And then we have just another Atomic Kid match, essentially. This has this basic shape, right? So we can almost claim a North Tower there. And then I think this one is more impressive than I thought the first time. We really do have multiple antenna resonating shapes over here. And then, of course, the smoking mouth, and then here's the burning element and the hand. His other hand is obscured. So hand and fire, that's how it works in the Pyramid Gallery as well, with JP's hand holding the cigarette. Here's the baked goods. Maybe we can kind of say that, and the legs. So general associations are correct here. We also have this here, right? There's like a wooden sign there inside of this plant, and red flowers very much on that side. So there's a match there in the ground. I think that's so amazing. Things like that, you know, because that's not. I don't know, but I don't think that is like set design. Maybe that element is.
Okay, now you're just being silly. Humans.
So that's like 3 pictures in a row that, you know, if you were to layer those, you would have a really, I mean, that's a pretty high dimensional match, I'd say.
Suffering is just a big joke to you, isn't it, Coogan?
Well, look how that works there. We see 2 Julies in the glasses. So her red hat would appear twice there. I think that's rather matchy, actually. Especially with our, you know.
You are so
His cigarette definitely seems to stick on that side of his face pretty consistently.
cool.
Okay.
Great shit.
And then I sort of neglected to see the Gestalt form here, which is that looking at this thing as a big shape, you know, there's a big red element. There's another big red element. So, you know, the bounding box of that shape would, of those 2 big red elements would be about like that. So it's definitely on that side. Also, there's a red element here that falls on that side. And over here we have, just very faintly, the wires. So it's also a Gestalt match, you know, as usual, right? Since there's just nothing surprising here. I also think this really looks like a drum cymbal. I don't know what else we're meant to think this thing is. Maybe it's just stretching its face out. I don't know. It's like a cyclops with a cymbal in its mouth. So maybe we can read that a little bit as a tower. I'm not sure. Okay, well, so that's those sequence of images. Those 4 pictures together, along with the matches that occur, you know, in the car, and then along with everything that happens on the plane. All of this with the red roses, remember, and all this stuff, and the exploding plane that, it's, you know, it's all clustered here in the timeline. And then we get this huge red twins loaded sequence. After this, we have the fusion, and right. And Ricky becomes a freak. I do think it dies down for a while here and then kind of picks back up. So, I don't know. We'll have to try to pay attention to these large forms patterns as well. But, okay. I want to do some gematria now because I find this now very, very... There's something very interesting here that's also a little surprising. I wasn't expecting it. So let's just start with the first one.
Exactly.
So, I don't remember. Human worm, right, is 119 reverse ordinal. See the hideous... That's spelling. Human worm. Only at Elijah C. Scuggs, famous Freakland Bienvenidos Turistas. So that's 1111 altogether. So human worm, you know, is the word that Ricky reads off it. So there's a, you know, like a filmically supported reason to cut that section out of the global text object there and process it in isolation. And then the whole thing together yields this weird 1111. You know, in addition to all of the other stuff that's going on here, because this is really quite a dimensional match on its own, to then also find this in the gematria structure I think is pretty amazing. Well, so what's interesting though, and I won't bother to do the calculations, you know, you guys can calculate it on your own if you'd like, but there isn't very much that I can see going on with these other images. So we have 3 pictures and then that 4th summarizing picture that basically tells us to look for this in the other 3 maybe. The first one, the human worm, has a whole lot of dimensional structure. Like it's a complete match in and of itself. You know, it contains multiple correspondences to the reference object. And then it has a loaded gematria structure. The following 2 images seem like they're filling in additional detail in that first image, but they themselves on their own are not really high-dimensional matches. They add dimensionality onto this first image, but if you were to break these out on their own, you know, you just have a picture of a dog. I guess actually the frog is fairly dimensional, but I would say less so still than that first one, right? The way the mouth looks there, and the axe and the tree and all of that, and just the human worm itself being such a close kind of general match for the atomic kid. That's a really impressive one. So in comparison to that, even though the frog gets a little dimensional, it's you know, I mean, you saw the first time I looked at it, I wasn't even that impressed by it. I was missing some things in it, but so anyway, these 2 don't really have anything interesting in the gematria that I could see. So that itself is an interesting thing to note. You know, I find that notable that the first image contains the maximum matchiness both in the image and in the text gematria values. Then we have kind of less impressive pictures and less impressive gematria, so it matches each time. See, it's strange. It really implies to me that there's some, like a center of energy on that first picture that causes in a magnetic way, you know, to use a metaphor, a whole lot of details and coincidences to align at once in like kind of like multiple spaces and ciphers. That's just a whole other wrinkle of this, you know, is that we find this material reflected in the image structure. We find it reflected in the projection space. But then we can also find it very often like encoded into these text elements. You know, we see all that at the Fox Photo film booth. I didn't go into this into the summary video, but on the complete analysis of Back to the Future on the archive, I spent a lot of time going through the gematria values of all that stuff. Just to list the surface level thing, Fox Photo is 119. which is what appears on, the building that the terrorists crashed the van into. So again, it's a very high dimensional image, and then it has this weirdness, like in a cipher kind of. So I wonder if there aren't, if information isn't encoded into these artifacts in even more elaborate ways that we won't unlock for some time, I'm reminded of what happens in Contact, the Carl Sagan piece, where they kind of keep discovering more and more layers to the complexity of the information that's been interleaved into what is, well, first they just think it's like an audio signal, but then they discover that it's video, but then the video can be kind of layered in some way that yields blueprints to build this machine that then opens the portal where you meet the others and individuate, basically. Because Ellie meets her father, and all this stuff happens in a kind of an underworld journey format. Yeah. So, okay. Do I want to launch into this deeper conversation about all this business to do with human suffering and entertainment and images and fantasy and just this whole can of worms? Pun not consciously intended. No, it's almost 10:30. So I think I'll do that. At some point in the future, probably just the next time. I just want to make sure I do it justice and come to it with a fresh, active mind rather than a kind of tired mind. So, well, okay. Thank you everyone for hanging out again. And yeah, see you in the future. Bye-bye.